Well, South Africa is officially without a deputy president. I sound like I'm repeating myself, but it's all linked. David Mabuza, we've learned today, has officially tendered his resignation to Parliament. Weeks after, he said that he would be stepping down.
People of South Africa, President Ramaphosa has extended gratitude and appreciation to Deputy President Mabuza for his exceptional service to the country over the last 5 years. The Deputy President has undertaken the responsibilities of his office with dedication. The President is grateful for the support he has provided to him throughout his term and for the leadership he has provided to the work of government. President Ramaphosa will make an announcement in due course about the appointment of a new Deputy President.
Political analyst Professor Dirk Kotze joins us to talk more about that story. Excuse me. A very good evening to you, Prof. Good to have you. So David Mabuza has now tendered his resignation, continuing, isn't it, with the pattern that we've seen since we learned of his imminent departure, that he's basically a step ahead, if you will, of the official announcements by the office of President Ramaphosa.
Yes, that is so. The fact that he resigned today as Member of Parliament means that he will automatically don't qualify or does not qualify anymore as to be the Deputy President. So his disqualification as Deputy President sort of kicks in immediately. And that means that from today onwards there is a vacancy in the position of the Deputy President.
And in terms of the work of the office and procedurally, what does it mean for a country such as South Africa to not have a deputy president for 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights?
Constitutionally speaking, not much. The deputy president does not have any powers of his or her own in the position of deputy president. The role of the deputy president is that of deputizing for the president when the president is not outside the country, for example, or is incapacitated for some period because of health or other reasons, or when it is the president, as for example, is not in a position anymore of president, has resigned, has been removed from office, then the deputy president immediately becomes the acting president. It is also when the deputy president is, in most cases, although it's not prescribed by the Constitution, is the leader of government in Parliament. All the deputy presidents so far have played that role, but it can actually be any minister can play that role. So in essence, our deputy president is not like that of a vice president in other countries, like for example in the US, where the vice president is the chairperson of Senate. In our case, the deputy president has no official positions beyond being in support of or acting together with the president.
Right, and among his duties, of course, was him being the leader of government business, the deputy president of the country, also chaired the National AIDS Council, so there were engagements at that level, and from time to time would see him leading official events. But when you look at the role of the deputy president and the criticism David Mabuza has faced, where people have said he was, in fact, quite underwhelming and they couldn't place him in terms of strength and contribution to the running of the government, is it by virtue of design of the role itself that he was underwhelming, if that is true?
Partly, yes, but partly it is also, I guess, because of his personality. If we look at all the deputy presidents so far, the one that was most active, I would say, was Deputy President Mbeki during the time of President Mandela. But President Mandela has given him a lot of tasks. For example, to chair cabinet meetings, and especially during the last few years of his term, he did it quite regularly. But for example, President Zuma, or Deputy President Zuma, and later Deputy President Ramaphosa, none of them played actually a very prominent role in government. They played that role in different contexts, but not that of government. So it is, in a sense, part of the constitutional position that they are, and I think one of the reasons we become used to the notion of two centers of power, that it is not that it creates a powerful deputy president who can, to some extent, threaten or be a bit of competition for the president. So in that sense, there's a clear hierarchy between the two.
And you use the difference of the Mbeki deputy presidency and the subsequent ones. It could be argued, could it not, that the Mbeki's case was specifically different because he was being groomed even by Nelson Mandela to become the successor, sort of an heir to the throne, if you will.
Yes, that is indeed so. And around about the last 2 years of President Mandela's term as president, he handed over most of the functions of government to the then Deputy President Mbeki. So it was because of this working relationship that developed between them, or division of work, that it could happen like that. But again, as I said, it is not designed like that in the Constitution. It depends on the relationship between the President and the Deputy President, and that can differ from term to term.
Paul Mashatile, then, what does he have to offer as someone who is lauded to be at the front of the queue to potentially be the Deputy President of the country? I say that, but we know the ANC has, through the Chief Whip in Parliament, Penny Majodina, and its Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, cautioned that it's not predetermined or a given that whoever is DP of the party becomes DP of the state.
Yes, that is so. We've seen it once where it didn't happen like that in the transition from President Zuma to President from President Mbeki to President Zuma also. So in this case, it is clearly possible for it that it's not self-evident, but it's very likely. I think in the case of Paul Mashatile as Deputy President, there's lots of speculation. There's lots of anticipation that he will be more of a hands-on person in this position. Some people are arguing that he will actually be a person who's going to challenge President Ramaphosa for his position, like, for example, next year after the election, that he might not necessarily be in that position anymore. So there's the expectation that he's going to be assertive in his position, that is relatively young still. He comes from a position where he was active in the ANC as acting Secretary General, as well as being the Treasurer General. So there's a feeling that he can bring in a lot into this position. But it will depend on President Ramaphosa to what extent he will delegate powers to him and responsibilities, or watch him closely that he doesn't develop a constituency of his own.
But with that said, might Mashatile's political ambitions, presidential ambitions, because even in the run-up to the ANC conference, just as we edge closer in December, there were rumors that some were putting him forward as a potential compromise candidate between the NDZ and Ramaphosa factions. Now that there's been this open conversation about his ambitions beyond the deputy presidency, might that influence him not being made deputy president of the country almost immediately in this looming reshuffle announcement, and perhaps being given another role, senior but not quite second in command?
It is possible. It happened with President Ramaphosa in 2012. He was elected at the 2012 ANC National Conference, but he only became Deputy President in 2014 after the national election. So there is a direct precedent in which involved now then Deputy President Ramaphosa, and so therefore it is very much a possibility. But I think President Ramaphosa will be under pressure given the dynamics that we have seen lately, and the fact that the Deputy President, David Mabuza, had resigned. So he might, in a conscious way, make the space open for the Deputy President, now Paul Mashatile, ANC Deputy President, to fill this position. But as I've said, there's no obligation in the case of President Ramaphosa as president to appoint him. He can, but the political reality will be that it will be very difficult for him not to do it.
Right. And just lastly, Professor Kotze, I don't know how much of the reporting you've seen, because with any imminent reshuffle, we see a lot of reporting sources giving different information to the different media houses. And among the reports in the last 48 hours has been the suggestion that Enoch Godongwana, who was now sworn in officially as an MP, may be moved to another portfolio away from finance. There's been some reporting, I think, from Media 24 that Begitele may very well, in this reshuffling of the deck of cards, be moved away from police. Would that be the perfect way to realign, to strengthen Ramaphosa's team?
Well, this whole cabinet reshuffle gives him that position. And I think this is the main purpose of it ultimately, over and above filling the vacancies that you referred to earlier on. But it does give him that opportunity. But there's also reports that says he doesn't want to go too far with that, because in a year's time there's going to be another reshuffle or reconstitution of cabinet after the national elections. So this is going to be, one can say, interim cabinet for a little bit more than a year. So it's not as if it is there for a long period, and therefore he must take decisive decisions about how his future cabinet will look like.
Interim, but it's also the cabinet that will take the ANC to an election. So quite crucial nonetheless that the right decisions are made.
Certainly so, yes. And I think what many people in public are going to look like, and because you talk about an election, the public opinion will be very important in this respect, is especially with ministers who are regarded as dysfunctional, not performing well, and those who have created sort of internal friction within the ANC. Persons like Lindiwe Sisulu and Dr. Dlamini Zuma are certainly in that category. So the public want to see changes as part of the way in which President Ramaphosa presents himself to the public as a person who wants to make changes.
Professor Dirk Kotze, good to speak to you as always. Thank you for your time on News at Prime.